Welcome back, everyone, to our final game of the day, Dignitas versus CLG. My name is Pastry Time. I am still joined by Azael as we're going to round out day 2 of week 2 of the LCS.
Not going to get rid of me that quickly.
I mean, see, I'm certainly trying with the speed at which they're playing the game, but yeah. We'll see how these two teams do. Certainly coming into the weekend, before we started things off, things were looking a little bit rocky for CLG, but actually they've been relatively surprising, and I think are starting to kind of do the things we asked, like put together more simple comps, be on the same game plan. It feels like how long this roster has been together and some of the things they wanted to work on at the end of spring are coming to fruition now in the early weeks of summer.
Yeah, I mean, through games, you kind of look at that one really bad game as it's starting to feel a bit more like an aberration, right? Like people didn't like the draft. It didn't really necessarily make sense together. They had this like Nidalee, Jace, poke comp, and then they had Cassio and stuff. They're kind of doing some weird things there. But their last two games have been actually pretty solid. And Dignitas is another team that looks like, they're going to have a good shot at actually taking them down. I do think that Stixxay and Smoothie have been playing better, and CLG as a whole, starting 2-1, that's damn good considering you didn't really get many more wins than that all of last split.
Yep. I mean, it's tough for CLG fans, of course, but certainly it's been brighter this early on. For Dig, has been a struggle in the early weeks, but again, it is very early on into the split still, and it does feel like this team is still kind of adjusting to, once again, another slew of changes. I think for me, I'm just kind of looking forward to Akaadian revisiting his old form, because when he's on in the LCS, he absolutely can take over games for you.
Yeah, he definitely can, right? And I think that people remember him kind of as this monster carry style power farmer, and it feels like, hey, well, shouldn't you be good right now then? Because that's kind of the meta. We have seen him play Nidalee. Graves, he has been really good on the pass. That would be exciting. And, we did get to see some of those stats on Stixxay. Stixxay, I think, has been doing fairly well out of lane. The kind of stat that really stands out like a bit of a sore thumb there was, the pretty monstrously negative CSD. So that's something that, Stixxay and Smoothie hopefully will be able to improve upon as the split does continue, as their laning has left something to be desired, but we'll see exactly where these two squads want to take us. A couple jungle bans already coming through early on here. Trundle and Olaf already taken off the table.
Yep, and Varus also banned away, but that's not really surprising at this point. Yumi will also be taken away, which is something I like for CLG. Again, I think we've asked them to be a bit more proactive, to play more playmaking supports, which is once upon a time at this point Smoothie was absolutely renowned for. Syndra also being banned away, which is another high priority champion, so it does feel like some pretty normal things are being taken away here. We'll see if CLG has anything interesting for their final ban here on red. But really, if Graves isn't banned, what does come across here for Dig? Akaadian's played Nidalee already, does he play that? Ornn's going to be the ban away, so lots open, especially for the jungle role here. But first pick on the line here for Dig.
Pretty interesting. I think the Ornn ban is just a response to actually the Trundle ban. A lot of times when people want to blind pick Ornn, as that top laner, they will ban out Trundle. Even though it isn't obviously that 1v1 matchup, it's coming from the jungle. It really does reduce a lot of the effectiveness that Ornn has later on. So kind of anticipating that perhaps they wanted to go towards that for Viper. Graves going to be the early lock though. That will come through here. And Wiggily, so far has given us 2 Trundle games as well as the 1 Nidalee game. So, unless he wants to go Nidalee here, he would be looking at a little bit of a different style. I do think that you can still go towards things like the Lee Sin. Elise we haven't been seeing a lot of, but I think Elise is also viable. Aphelios feels like the obvious grab right here. Ezreal probably going to be the trade, but we know that Yumi is banned away, so that is kind of the best pairing remove there for Dignitas. So I do like the Aphelios pick here, and you can kind of leave your jungle at least till that 3rd pick if you want.
Certainly haven't seen Graves leave left open too often. Twisted Fate though, very early for Pobelter. He did play it already. Is it, I think, a champion that both is actually very good in the current meta, but not every team can necessarily play the champion, both with it as a team, but individually. You have to put quite a lot of games in on TF as a mid laner to play him, but POB is certainly capable, and I think a champion that can be very good, especially if you're looking to, just make plays as a team and build that cohesion.
All right, so Dignitas is not going to go the Ezreal. This will be the first non-Ezreal game for Johnsun of the split. You can go things like Kalista Thresh is a very common pairing. Kalista Sett can work. Kalista Alistar, really a lot of those types of aggressive pairings can be very, very effective. It is usually something you want to run down on that bottom side if you want to play heavily around that lane. Look to gank towards it and utilize that pressure to then try to stack dragons, utilizing the Graves early power there. And it does feel like that is a lot of what Dignitas is drafting for here. Early mid-game power, the Graves, the Kalista, the LeBlanc, all going to be very strong, both early on and kind of in that mid stages of the game.
Well, see what CLG want to take for the third pick here, because LeBlanc there for Froggen to pick into the TF and try and keep him down. But they have a lot of mismatches here, and don't want to let the Volibear go. That is going to be the pick here for Ruin. That is Volibear blind, but Volibear seems pretty resilient in most matchups, so pretty fine to take early.
Yeah, Volibear is really strong, and the other thing is when you pick Volibear, even though it is blind in this situation, you now have 2 more bans, right? So if there's anything that you're particularly worried about Viper playing into it, you can throw a banner to the way of the top lane. I am expecting Dignitas to throw more jungle bans the way of Wiggily. If you really want to push him down in that priority, Graves obviously one of the strongest junglers right now in the meta, and if you can really kind of get Wiggily down on a lower prio jungler, that could bully him out. So far though, the Taric ban coming through is trying to target one of those pairings, especially a team fighter alongside that Kalista. Taric obviously very strong there. And when I talked about, my expectation of Dignitas trying to focus early game down on the bottom side towards the dragons, Taric can be very, very effective in those team fights. And Thresh will get taken off as well. So a lot of the key pairings really getting banned out here for Johnsun and aphromoo.
Yeah, I actually like how CLG approached those phase 2 bans, just trying to weaken the potential bottom lane 2v2. I imagine another jungle ban will be here for Dig, although Wiggily has already lost the 2 champions he's played so far, so he will be showing us a new champion regardless.
Could be a Lee ban. I think wouldn't be bad here. That's kind of feels like the next highest prio. Oh, Morgana. So they actually, I think, then want to go towards Leona. So I think the Morgana is trying to open up what they feel is their next most obvious pick. And this is actually looking like Sett support. It could be Sett jungle for Wiggily. That is something that has been out there a little bit. Phase Rush Sett is actually something that Kobe has been talking about, has been gaining a fair bit of popularity. And you can take that Phase Rush Sett, into a Phase Rush Graves, and if you can actually catch him with the clap, block your Phase Rush, you do then have the ability to not just get kited out in that 1v1. Aatrox is going to be the answer up here on that top side for Volibear. This is actually, I think, a pretty tough matchup for Aatrox. Volibear probably going to have priority up there, and now we're looking to see what the pairing is. I am expecting, or at least I was expecting, the Leona, given that Morgana ban and kind of, what we've seen so far banned out, but a very different direction. Bard, really interesting. So I wonder if they are expecting that to be a Sett support and are saying, hey, I don't want to play Leona into another tank support, going with the Bard action there. There is also, a fair bit of ability for Bard to kind of slow down and disrupt some of these fairly, for lack of a better word, like basic melee champions that are going to be kind of charging at you, like the Volibear and the Sett. You can kind of bind them up, slow them down. And Lulu as the pairing here now for Aphelios on that bottom side. So could be Volibear jungle, could be Volibear top. We'll have to see exactly where they want to swap things around, but does look like it is going to be Sett in the jungle, Volibear top, and Lulu down here on that bottom side to match the Bard. So I like this quite a lot actually from CLG. I do kind of feel like I'm favoring their draft pretty heavily.
Yeah, I think, again, sticking to, I guess, the rules we've laid out for them, very straightforward. Like, matchups all make sense. Doesn't seem like there's any major imbalance you'll have to correct for in the early game. You can just kind of play your game plan, build up and then have a strong mid game. And you have a great insurance policy. Like we've talked about Stixxay and Smoothie's laning, maybe not necessarily being up to par, but I think as a team in the team fights, they've been fairly effective. And if that's what you're trying to do, Enchanter plus Aphelios is a great way to make sure team fights go your way.
Yeah, and even more so when you have 2 big meatballs up in the front line, right? You have Sett, you have Volibear creating space for you, so there's a lot of good peel. There's, obviously the speed up and the shielding coming through from a Lulu. They have the ability to split push with the TF. They can play towards side lanes, Volibear plus TF plus Sett. That is a very dangerous 3-man dive up on that top side. You can turn off the tower. You have the point and click stun on multiple champions. So I do like what CLG has done, and I think there's a pretty large onus on Dignitas to get a big advantage in the early game, to utilize the Graves LeBlanc combo in particular to try to keep that TF down, keep Pobelter locked locked under his turret, so he can't actually be moving out to the side lanes and getting things done. And you know, if they can get that happening, then you can join up with the Kalista and the Bard, start snowballing dragons, getting the Bard out of lane, and trying to make things happen. Because if this game plays slow, I think CLG have a much better draft.
Yep, certainly two teams, a pretty critical game for their weekend so far. Dig looking for their first win of their 2 games they have to play this weekend, and CLG looking for their first 2-0 week of the split, even though, again, it has only been 2 weeks. And Kobe will be happy. It's phase rush across the board for the junglers, both Graves and Sett taking it here.
I mean, CLG went 3-15 in spring.
Yes.
If they win this, they are 3-1. Just put that into perspective, right? You know, that whether or not you want to say anything about, you know, the quality of opponents, who cares? Like, that is a monumental improvement for CLG if they are able to have that start, regardless of where their split goes from here. You know, that is something that is going to be feeling really, really good for these players to be able to show that, hey, they are working hard, that they are committed to improving, that they are trying to get better week over week, and maybe things are really starting to come together.
Yep. I mean, I haven't checked it, but given that they only got 3 wins, it is technically possible for them to have already gone 2-0 this year. But maybe they didn't. So this could also be their...
They never, they never did.
Then this could be their first 2-0 weekend of the year, Azale.
They take those.
Certainly, right? Again, a very much better start regardless of how you get there. CLG will be looking to go undefeated for the year. You see Graves are starting on that right. It's same side junglers this time around, but I think this bottom lane's certainly a fun one. Much more aggressive. Certainly a departure from Ezreal here. The Hail of Blades Kalista alongside the Bard with the upgraded Guardian.
Yeah, I've got to say I'm actually really surprised that aphromoo is playing Spell Thieves. Oftentimes in these kind of, you know, range versus range support matchups, people will actually just go for Relic Shield, as we've seen Smoothie do, because it's hard to actually keep your Spell Thieves on cooldown the whole time. And if you're not doing that, then the gold generation becomes pretty poor with it. So, you know, Bard is probably my most played support champion. You know, I tend to feel like Guardian is the best build. You can do things like Guardian Athenes into tank, and that can be really, really powerful. There's so many different ways you can kind of diverge with your build paths, and it is nice to have the additional mana regeneration from a Spell Thieves, but I tend to feel like you can just go Relic Shield and pick up Chimes, and it's more consistent, you're tankier, and you're also in a situation where you know, you're not as dependent on trying to sometimes force these trades that can end up pretty awkward.
Well, to continue our conversation from earlier, thank you to production who provided me with this fun fact. The last time CLG went 2-0 in a weekend, Azale, was 2019 Summer Week 8. So not quite a year anniversary since the last time, but it has been a minute for CLG.
It's been a while. Now I wonder, you know, if we've doomed them to lose, having talked about it this much, you know?
Let's talk about Akaadian. It's got a crib then alongside Wiggily, who's level 4 and maybe looking for something down here in the bottom lane, but is on a ward. Looks like he's just going to clear those camps and take a recall. Stixxay and Smoothie playing up and aggressive though. The Aphelios alongside the Lulu. Feeling pretty good so far for the early landing phase, but a lot of minions for Johnsun to go ahead and kill, so shouldn't be too far behind at the end of this.
Not too bad, and they do have to play a bit back, you know, as Dignitas in this bottom lane for now, because look where Akaadian is. He's on the other side of the map, so they're in a situation where they had to play a bit more defensively. But again, I mean, if CLG, if they can kind of just stalemate this bot lane and lock Johnsun and aphromoo into a farm lane, and you were playing Lulu and Aphelios into this Kalista Bard, then you're going to be really, really happy about your chances moving forward into the game. So, I mean, Akaadian has got about a 1 camp advantage, as Froggen should be able to get out of here no problem.
Yep.
But, you know, that 1 camp advantage isn't enough.
Certainly not, as Pobelter does take some electrocute damage, but getting things pushed up. Again, if you're just farming back and forth as TF, you're in a good place. It does have Spellbook, which has been very common. Always nice to be able to switch over to Ghost, but does have the TP as the permanent, in air quotes, summoner. And is going to head back and maybe use it back to lane now, but it doesn't need to, as we do see the Catalyst picked up for that early Rod of Ages. Still waiting on Wiggily to maybe make an impact in one of these lanes, but again, can just be happy farming and maybe wants to wait to 6 anyway to really get some sort of gank going.
Yeah, I mean, I think Wiggily doesn't have to do anything except AFK farm. If Graves isn't actually ganking and taking dragons and making things happen, and you're playing Sett, great, who cares? You're going to outscale them. You're going to win this in 5v5. almost for sure as CLG. So, Wiggily, wants to defend his lanes, wants to stay even in farm, but he doesn't have to force anything at all.
Well, if there's any org that knows, ancient plans like scale for late game, it certainly will be a team like CLG, as Akaadian's going to go ahead and shoot down this control ward here, get himself a bit of gold. He's going to dip into mid, but Pobelter knows that the jungler's on this side of the map, so happy to play nice and respectfully. Just going to wild cards down and pops the emote, because, sometimes there's nothing else to do while you wait for the wave.
That's a good one. When you know the jungler is around, I like that one. I also am still a big fan of just the setting up a tent emote, the little camping emote. I always think is a good one. Every time they fail a gank, you just pop that one up real quick.
I do like that the emote meta is evolving in the LCS. Nice to see people using those a bit more frequently. Wiggily, though, early onto this dragon, does, I think, have prior with Pobelter being level 6 especially, but his bottom lane, more importantly, has already been pushing. So plenty of space for Wiggily to go ahead and take this objective.
Yep, exactly. I mean, you have the pushing 2v2. You know that Graves was clearing bot to top. That's another kind of important little part there, is that they saw Graves down on the bottom side. They had his Raptors warded. They know that's down, so they know he had to be moving up towards the top side to continue farming those camps. And that's going to give CLG a nice and easy dragon. They're going to be feeling really, really good about these early minutes and feeling confident, I think, going forward from here.
I'm not sure if it'll make a difference, but Wiggily actually faked a recall because he got spotted by a Sentinel, but now it's going to get spotted at the Raptor camp anyway. So Akaadian just going to go ahead and say, thanks for the leash. Did get one small chicken, but not significant at all for Wiggily, as Akaadian does have that XP lead and is Graves. So with the shop already in, it's going to be more than happy to challenge her if Wiggily wanted to stay. In top lane, though, nice and even on CS. We've seen, I think we're starting to learn more about Volibear's matchups. It does feel like, again, Volibear's just kind of fine in almost any situation, and sometimes when you make a mistake, he kills you, but very rarely. I think for the most part, it's just lots of trading and everyone farms.
Yeah, I mean, if the Aatrox doesn't want to opt into fights, then it's pretty hard for Volibear to actually make things happen. But I do think Volibear can have really, really good trades. That one obviously going very heavily in the way of Viper. I mean, he knocked multiple sweet spots, got the pullback on his chains, so really kind of outplaying in that trade. But, Volibear is such a strong early brawler, and it's not such a one-dimensional champion anymore. You always kind of think about Volibear as this champion that can kind of just get kited out, and that used to be very true with the previous iteration of it. But now that you have this huge jump on your ultimate, you have the additional attack range, you have the ability to turn off the towers, your Q speed up is actually pretty monstrous at the higher ranks, so it's actually pretty difficult to deal with this champion even in team fights, and it's allowing him to have a lot of comfortable matchups in lane, good pressure in the mid game, and can still be fairly effective in the later stages.
Yep, certainly seen Volibear do a surprising amount in these short few games you've had already. PUB also has been given the first blue buff of the game, but he's going to cheat topside here because it looks like he might be going for an ulti. Nope, Scryer's bloom instead. Making sure they have division. They do spot Akaadian starting that Rift Herald, and it looks like enough people on this side, in fact all 5 for CLG converging on this objective, might just be making the swap to take it here.
Yeah, there's a little bit of hesitation. You can see Stixxay kind of walking back and forth in the river there. They know they're going to lose a lot of farm on the bottom side, and Stixxay now going back down to the bottom lane again. So, really a bit of hesitation there from CLG. It felt like they made the call to try to move up towards the Herald and take that, but seeing all these minions that are going to die down to that turret was a little bit too juicy for Stixxay to resist, so he roams back down onto the bottom. But, kind of as a result of some of this movement, also just the general laning, again, Stixxay is fairly behind in the farm, which has kind of been that trend we saw in the stats. He was averaging down about 13 CS or something like that at 15, I want to say. And, he's down 10 plus with more to pick up for Johnsun.
Yep, picked up that whole wave, so now it's behind 8. After it's all said and done, Rift Herald is also collected despite the speedrun being there for CLG and giving them vision. Pobelter was on a reset to go ahead and pick up his Rod of Ages, and it seemed like CLG had kind of given up the objective after the initial rotate. Wasn't to the bottom lane's liking. But again, the game continues. Like you said, CLG are happy to be in a holding pattern for a lot of this game, especially in the early stages of it. And with already having a dragon, they'll be able to play for the next one in a minute 30. There's certainly no rush between these two teams. At least on the CLG side.
At least on the CLG side. I do think that there is a rush on the Dignitas side, but the fact that CLG took the first dragon means that there's no chance of, you know, an instantly snowballed soul, and they are just sitting in such a comfortable position now. You know, Roa complete on this TF, and you know, if you look at the two compositions and you talk about a game where no one's fighting, it's always going to be way in the favor, I think, of CLG. You know, especially the later you get into it, the ability for TF to side lane. Yes, you can answer that if you are LeBlanc, but you're not going to have TP. You're not going to be able to then match those cross-map plays that TF can very comfortably set up for.
It does seem like a lot of action around the mid lane though, as we'll watch Ruin and Viper back in battle. Does get chained again here, but gets out of there and gets a good amount of damage done onto Viper. Biting away there, letting the lightning rip. Viper though trades back, sweet spot. Doesn't go for the flash, just is happy with winning the trade at the end of the day.
Yep, and you've got to make sure you don't forget about, you know, all the kind of bonus health that you are getting from that Volibear ultimate, so you don't want to underestimate that. But, you know, we kind of saw how both trades can go well. You know, Volibear, ideally, you know, you're starting to trade off with an auto W, you know, that type of play. And if you can get a second W off in the trade, it's usually going to go pretty heavily your way. But likewise for Viper, you hit a couple sweet spots and keep the Volibear a bit at range, and things can look pretty nice for you too.
Smoothie going to go ahead and actually the Sentinel's going to time out anyway, but everyone is down here for this next Drake, with the exception of the top laners that do have TP. So it should be a battle here. aphromoo and Akaadian clearing out vision. Afro does have his ultimates, had it for a little bit now, alongside the Kalista ult as well. Everyone is certainly prepared for some sort of fight. Ruin actually already backed and based just to TP in maybe for this one.
So it looks like the fight will be breaking out potentially. They are kind of pushing them back. You can see CLG is backing off a little bit. As you said, Viper has TP and they don't necessarily know if there's any TP flanking wards. Volibear is just going to TP straight in though, and it looks like Viper's going to be way too late. Yep,
Dragon goes over. Tempered Fate does not stop it from going down. aphromoo does get a double stun there onto the bottom lane of CLG. Here comes Viper though, looking for the flank. Smoothie maybe going to be the sacrifice. Great double Q though, finds two for the knock up there for Viper, but the exhaust is going to prevent the follow-up, and Afro misses the follow-up Q for the slow. Smoothie ults himself and gets out, and that's a Dragon and a quick exit for CLG. Oh, no, never mind. The tower dive's incoming. Stixxay, though, with the red gun shooting away. The first blood, though, goes over to Johnsun, but the tower is aggressive.
Comes the bear.
As he knocks on the Kalista Soldier. Here comes Ruin. Once one is going to grab it. There's the first 300 gold. Now Wiggily, double face breaker, going to make it look good. It's a Stormbringer. Leaps Ruin in to maybe chase for the next. And CLG, they get the Dragon, and they win the extended fight.
Yeah, very well done. Stixxay does go down, but he bought quite a bit of time because he had the red gun out for the red gun ultimate, which is a big burst of healing, and then straight into the Q to try to survive as long as possible. And that bought time for the rest of CLG to come in and fight this. And Smoothie now is behind him, so should be able to get out. It's actually going to be Pobelter TPing back in to support. Want to make sure that Ruin will be able to escape from this situation, but CLG get the Dragon, get the additional kills. They are feeling really, really comfortable here. And you know, something else to track is that support item conversation that we had a little bit earlier. The support item transformed for Smoothie, you know, around 11 something. I didn't get the exact time. And aphromoo still doesn't have his Spell Thieves transformed, so he doesn't actually have those wards and can't swap over to a sweeper, which is important for, you know, setting up around these objectives. So here it is one more time. The TP from Viper, you can see down in the Tri-Brush, that was pretty late, and also Afro would have needed to ult the Dragon a lot earlier if he wanted to try to delay for Viper to arrive. Viper does come into the fight though, a nice Q flash, knocks up both of them, and Stixxay sitting really, really low here, was looking like a pretty juicy target. They see Pobelter show up back in the mid lane, and they're like, hey, let's go for this. But watch the R here, with that red gun out, big burst of healing from Stixxay, makes it take a little bit longer. Johnsun gets turret aggro, which puts him very, very low, and sets for Ruin to just flash right on in, taking out that Kalista. Then as Wiggily arrives, a nice double stun there, clapping multiple members together, and CLG do clean up on the back end of the fight.
You know, I described Sett vs Volibear top lane yesterday as like a wrestling 1v1. We'll hold that thought though, as Dig going in for the tower dive. 4v2. Goodbye, Stixxay.
Nice ult.
Catches Smoothie barely on the edge. And now Froggen roaming in there. Wild Growth knocks up 3 of Smoothie. He's trying to cut himself away, but Viper shuts that idea down as make it 2-0 in the top side for Dignitas.
Really well done there from Dignitas. Smooth plays out of aphromoo, lands the stun on the wall, guaranteeing their first kill. Then the Tempered Fate over onto Smoothie to guarantee that kill also. Really, really clean from him. And he does get his transform off that, so a couple minutes behind, but not too bad. And, you know, maybe happy to have that little bit of extra mana regeneration.
First turret just barely going over to Dig as well. Johnsun getting the last hit there in top lane as the race was on. Gold is still up for CLG, but only a few hundred. Not a significant lead at all. So still fairly even, though I think those kind of plays, though, is what we are looking for Dig here as we get into the early stages of this mid-game. They do need to be more aggressive given the compositions and things like that, with aphromoo making plays, which when he is playing Bard is the thing he should be doing. More of that, please, if you're a Dignitas fan.
Yeah, exactly, and it is something that they're always going to have. You know, you can talk as much as you want about scaling, but playmaking and the ability to really change fights is something that Bard does have in spades, and you can move very quickly around the map, especially with Moby boots and your tunnels, and being able to set up fights with the ultimate can really be game changing. You get that critical ultimate on multiple members, you land the stun right out of that, and that can change the context of the fight completely, whether or not you're supposed to win in a more standard fight.
So see that Froggen has now moved himself to the side lane here, currently in a 1v2, but dual lane will swap back down as the next dragon is spawning in 50 seconds. CLG are up 2-0 on that particular objective, but his opponent in the mid lane there, Pobelter, actually quietly creeping up very nicely ahead in farm, nice and significantly. Has been very efficient with those in moving across the map, while being able to continue to get farm wherever he moves. 2 items already done, including that Zhonya's with the Rod of Ages, only 3 stacks away from being fully powered up. So POB could make a big impact on this game, especially as the map opens up a little bit more. Twisted Fate will always be happy to have more space to play with his ulti.
He definitely will, and he's kind of gone for what is essentially the team fighting build, right? It's not the early Lich Bane to try to get straight up to the side lanes and threaten towers. Roa and Zhonya's is the combo you want to have if you want to be able to act more as an initiator, if you want to be able to get aggressive, ult into the back line, gold card the AD to set up for the rest of your squad, straight into the Zhonya's. You have that inherent tankiness with all the bonus health from that Roa, which is stacking up, and the Zhonya's is going to allow you to get a lot more done there too. Some
chains onto Wiggily, but shakes them off, eats some honey fruit. There's some extra
Third dragon
in the Ocean Rift, but yeah, this dragon is the big prize the teams are fighting for. Dig already first to the area, they'll finish it. Pobelter will reveal them. The dragon is going to fall, but can CL2 win the fight following? Wiggily does not take the magical journey. Oh goodness, Pobelter is really in there. Does have the Zhonya's though, pops it. With the wild growth on him as well, is feeling pretty safe, but Dig just take the objective and get out of there.
Yeah, important move from Dignitas. CLG a little bit slow to actually get ready for that dragon. They would have loved to be on that third dragon there. I think they're in a position where they could have actually won the fight around it, but they were just too slow to set it up. If you take that dragon, you're looking at, 22, 23 minute potential Ocean Soul, which really is completely GG when you have, multiple frontliners and this Lulu to kind of keep you alive long enough for that Ocean Soul to really make a difference. So Dignitas definitely had to get that to really hang on in this one, and are going to be pretty happy about the fact that they have at the very least delayed that soul win condition for CLG.
It gives them a lot more space to continue to be aggressive here and try and build up a lead. CLG are still ahead in gold. They're not quite 1,000 gold ahead, but Dig still with plenty of objectives to try and take down. Mid outer tower being the most obvious one, as Johnsun is trying to get the minions pushing back in that direction. CLG at least got the trade of the tower after the Ocean Dragon, after failing to find that fight. But once again, CLG pretty comfortable with how things are going. They are going to get the Rift Herald as well off the extended play, as Wiggily will not be contested for this objective.
Something that's always kind of interesting to me to talk about is it's like, what is the potential of your champion versus what is kind of the floor of the champion? What is like the worst you can give? And I think that both the item builds and the support champions themselves really kind of signify that almost better than really any other, because Lulu here with CDR boots, with an Ardent Sensor, you press shield, you press ultimate, it doesn't even have to be anything particularly fancy, and you have an incredibly high floor for the champion. It's always going to be very useful if you just press some buttons. Whereas on the other side here, Bard, you're going to be going Deadmans, you're going to be going Mobies. This is all about playmaking. You must be landing stuns, you must be landing critical ultimates, or your champion becomes a little bit of auto attack damage, a small heal with your shrine, and that's about it, right? So there's a lot of pressure on aphromoo to really make something critical happen, or his champion is just going to be worthless compared to Lulu.
Oh, good opportunity there potentially in mid lane, but Pobelter going to counter ulti onto Akaadian. He flashed gold cards. Smoothie going to tag him and I think got the slow there, but Wiggily going to try and chase in. Oh, the stun from aphromoo, latching from so far away, but here comes Ruin. The unstoppable bear will charge in, and Froggen, he's trapped in with the rest of CLG. Oh, this is close. Never mind. He's out.
Baited and outsmarted. Froggen's going to escape there with the clone. And CLG not quite able to make the initiation happen, and they weren't all there at the same time to really kind of go for it. It ends up being a trade of flashes, you know, across the board. Obviously, Pobelter committing his flash, but he has spellbook, so not as big of a deal. Wiggily flash, Akaadian flash, Froggen flash. It was a good defensive ulti there from aphromoo to allow his team time to get out of what would have been a losing fight.
Yeah, certainly good damage control there as CLG continue to defend their mid-outer tower for as long as they can. Ruin also finishing his Trinity Force, so going for much more of the Bruiser build here in top lane, unlike the tank build we saw last game.
Yeah, and I think that was really what we saw last time around, and when we saw that Frozen Heart earlier, it was because there was so much physical damage. It was like pretty one-dimensional as far as the team comp does go. This one is very heavy physical damage as well, but it is more about the brawling, more about the 1v1. And if you want to build for that 1v1, it looks like he's probably going in towards a Death Dance is my expectation. Triforce, Death Dance, have the Bramble Vest to cut some of that Aatrox healing, and you're going to be setting yourself up for success in that 1v1.
Froggen also, oh goodness, Pobelter starting to flex the lead he has in mid lane here. Oh, Afro, careful now. It's fine, everything's fine.
Just procking the Spell Thieves. He was never trying to dive, right?
Yeah. Ultimate on cooldown, you know, just a show of force.
Yeah,
Just dig in mid lane here, gonna look to finish off this tower. Smoke screen on Stixxay, and that'll be that tower being equalized as well. So gold still sticking very even between these two teams.
And that is something that's really nice about Bard, is how quickly he got from bottom lane to mid lane, right? You run down to bot, you threaten the dive, someone's got to respond because Smoothie doesn't know if you're going to dive or not, so he starts to run, and you can get back towards mid lane faster than he can, and you can kind of end up with these odd man situations where, you know, CLG's going to hopefully, for Dignitas, lose something.
CLG holding strong because there is a dragon to fight for in 15 seconds, getting that setup done now. Make sure they have all the vision in place. Smoothie even getting a ward onto the Raptors. They'll probably start this on spawn, but Dig are getting themselves to the area.
Yeah, you can see the Void Staff purchase here from LeBlanc. I think this is how much gold he had. He could complete an item, and he's like, if we don't get Dragon, we're probably just screwed, so I'm going to buy this. But there's no MR at all on the opposing team, so it's not a great buy. We'll see if they can get some value out of it with a teamfight win here, though. Akaadian is trying to look to set up for this steal.
Yeah, they're just going to go for it. Tempered Fate looking for the champions. Goes in. Dragon goes over to Wiggily. And now Digger going to go for the team fight, but Wiggily looking to try and dunk somebody. Ruin also coming around the flank. Joins CLG. Pobelter with the ulti. In he goes onto Akaadian. Looks to be the target. No! Over the other side instead. Onto Viper is what he wants. Rift Herald says hello in the middle of the team fight. And no kills, but CLG still getting the objective. They'll take it.
Yeah, they'll take it, and they're dropping Rift Herald mid. That was actually Ruin's teleport going into that Raptor pit. I believe it must have been canceled by a chains from LeBlanc, but they're going to get the Dragon. They're going to get the tower here mid lane, and it really is feeling like Dignitas' time is running out in this game. It's now sole point for CLG. Dignitas very clearly can't take a straight-up fight. And it's really, really tough when you're now in a situation where you've got to be scrappy, and you've got to find picks, and you've got to do all these different things, but your opponents can just say, all right, Dragon spawns, come fight me or you lose. And that's kind of where Dignitas are right now.
And again, for how quiet a game it has been, CLG have been sticking to their game plan. They've kept the game close. They've snowballed the Dragon. And Pobelter is continuing to grow in strength. And we saw what one of his cards did on Froggen earlier in the bottom lane. He is closing in on Lichbane, which I assume is his purchase with the Blasting One and the Aether Wisp here. And then he goes from, oh, I'm a team fighting, you know, I'm trying to be disruptive in team fights, to now I'm just a genuine threat.
Exactly. You really can start to put out a lot of damage once you have that Lichbane, especially if you have, you know, stack cards buff, you know, that, plus the gold card damage, plus the Lichbane proc. You know, you're going to be able to get the guaranteed wild cards after that as they are stunned. Your objective damage goes really, really up once you have that Lichbane, so you're becoming more of a genuine split push threat. So TF, you know, in a very, very good spot in this game, up heavily in farm, and it's a team fight breaking out here in the jungle.
Akaadian trying to defend his red buff, but in goes Viper onto Stixxay, I think it was, but he's going to get pulled back in as Pobelter is just launching himself into the team fight. Does pop the zone. His Viper is still over the wall, is dealing damage. The Q is massive from aphromoo. As Pobelter will fall, and Stixxay is going to be next. Aphro flashes in to give Johnsun the double kill.
Oh, what a throw by CLG. I don't think they realized how many people were there. They were kind of moving as this three-man squad into their opponent's jungle, thinking that they have TF ultimate, they can turn it around if anything happens, but TF ults in, the rest of the squad is on a pink ward, and he just charges into the brush, I think not realizing that there's 3 or 4 members there, just dies immediately after the Zhonya's. They just gave away what was a monstrously winning position despite the close gold into a team fight throw and a Baron.
Yeah, Baron is the big one here that's been given away. Dignitas will go ahead and grab it now with the first significant gold lead we've seen in this game, up 3K off the back of one single team fight plus the objective.
And they needed that.
Have to be patient here. Yeah, they did.
And let's see this one more time. So they actually don't catch that ward with the sweeper, so Dignitas has full vision of them moving in here. But you have Volibear without TP up on the top side, but it's supposed to be a 4v4 because TF can join. But watch this. It should be a Dignitas lost fight. Pobelter should be pulling back the rest of his team, gold card Viper out of the Bard ultimate, you focus down the Aatrox, and then you are kiting back with the rest of the squad with Aatrox dead. Instead, I don't know if he didn't see them, like, because it was a TP, it wasn't his ultimate, so I guess he just didn't understand how many people were in the brush, but he charges forward thinking, oh, you guys will get the Aatrox, I'll get even more. Instead, he loses his life, they don't even kill the Aatrox, they all start to die, and they lose the Baron, and that is just horrible for CLG.
Yep. Not what they're after. Pobelter, though, is at least going to be a nuisance while this Baron power play is on for Dig. They do have work to do here, but this is an easy tower to take here in bottom lane. They'll shred that down with ease as they look to the mid tier 2 as well. POB, though, has finished that Lich Bane, which is the reason he's able to split push with such impunity.
Yeah.
And it's going to be answered now.
And don't get me wrong, I mean, CLG could still win this game. They still do have a really good 5v5, but
not like
Dignitas,
that, though.
You know, no, not like that. And Dignitas does actually have a way in now because, you know, not only did they get all those kills in the Baron, Johnsun was the recipient of most of those kills. He has 4 of the team's 5. He is essentially a full item ahead of Stixxay at that point, and, you know, he is going to be able to play fairly aggressively. You know, if you can actually kite out some of these melee champions, you could stack up a lot of spears into the Volibear in the set. You have some pretty decent, you know, slows and peel from this Bard. If he can keep those melee off him, they have an opportunity to make things happen, especially now that he has QSS and Barrier. You have the heal on aphromoo, the Guardian on aphromoo. It's a fairly good defensive setup to survive through a lot of this.
Froggen also with a really nice flank there in that brush. Ruin's going to get spot him, but you're going to have to Stormbringer out of there. Tempered Fate catches 2. That's the 2 carries. Viper is going to look to chain it up, but that Stixxay locked in the front side as Johnsun's now on a rampage as he takes down the enemy AD. And Dig, they'll keep going. Still 30 seconds left on this Baron. They can break mid here.
They could end, potentially. If another person on CLG gets picked, this is getting really dicey, so CLG's got to be careful, and now it's no longer can you even get the Ocean Soul, it's like, can you hold your base?
Yeah, before the next dragon spawns, because they are not getting his Ocean Dragon as the inhibitor in mid falls down. Have to think that Dig will stop after the objective just to make sure they keep it out of CLG's hands, and once again, very significant Baron power play, up about 2,700 gold at the end of it all, up total about 4 or 5k as they'll take that dragon we expected.
Yeah, good job there by Dignitas. CLG plays it smart. They do back off. They just seed the inhibitor. You know, if you try to defend there and more people die, Dignitas can actually potentially end. So, you know, they want to take the safer route, and they do just grab the inhib. They grab the dragon again, you know, denying that soul here for CLG. And, you know, CLG really going to be kicking themselves for not, you know, grabbing that earlier in the game. You know, had they not given up that early dragon, you know, that early Ocean over to Dignitas, you know, they could have already potentially had soul, and, you know, have made some kind of critical errors here. They do still have a great composition, but they are giving more and more windows to Dignitas to close this out, and Dignitas is looking like they're in a pretty solid spot to do so at this point. Yet another kill has gone to Johnsun. He's the one picking up pretty much every single one, and now working towards the Death Dance. He's going for triple lifesteal build. The only healing debuff is actually on the Volibear, so if he's not hitting the Volibear, you know, and hitting that Bramble Vest, he's going to be healing for a ridiculous amount once he has that Death Dance plus Orc and Mercurial.
Yeah, certainly seems troublesome for CLG right now, but they do still have the same plan. It's just kind of shifted in where it's up to. Before, the nice thing was they were just kind of keeping even keel, which given the compositions, they were more than happy with. Like, Stixxay was naturally scaling with his opponent as the game carried on. Now, Stixxay's behind. Yes, Pobelter can be a threat in these side lanes and try and buy time, which is what CLG need, but playing a straight-up 5v5 around one of these objectives, like the Dragon coming up in 3:30 or the next Baron that will be up in 1:30, starts to become much more challenging, if not, you know, outright something you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a composition where they should be pretty happy given even gold, and that's where they were, but one big mistake, and it kind of ballooned the gold lead there for Dignitas. You know, Stixxay is now down 2 levels. He's down an entire item because they both have the Aegis. It's literally a full Mercurial ahead of his opponent for Johnsun. That is very, very concerning. You know, compositions matter to a certain point, but having all of that gold, especially right where you want it on your marksman, is going to be feeling really, really good for Dignitas.
Yep, going to call it 7 towers now for Dig, as they've got all the tier 1s and the tier 2s, and the inhibitor towers down. One inhibitor tower down in mid, as super minions are still striding towards CLG's Nexus. 40 seconds until that Baron spawns.
One nice thing for CLG, I guess, is, you know, when you have the supers down, you still have really good wave clear with this IE Hurricane on Stixxay, and he's going to basically get all that farm for free, right? It's just going to push right into the base. The mid lane is something that you're going to have to kind of push out before objectives anyway, so it's not nearly as hard to deal with as, you know, having that bottom lane inhibitor down, for example. It's not going to be nearly as much of an issue around that mid lane. And you shove out mid lane, you can still move from there once you have priority as CLG to try to answer any sort of Baron attempt that Dignitas might go for.
Well, Stixxay not up to Death Dance just yet, so still basically down a full item to Johnsun as aphromoo and his Dead Man's Plate starting to zoom him around this Baron area as Dig prepare to contest for the objective. CLG, they're all spotted in mid. They do need to be sticking together at a time like this. So they'll push up mid and try and go fight for vision. Pobelter ultis actually just to get information. Froggen could be the target. He's going to go in. He'll get the gold card down, but Ruin on the other side not quite going for the same target, but Froggen, I don't think the Mimic's going to save him this time as Smoothie's able to snipe him with a Glitter Lance.
Really good catch there from CLG, and now they have first go at this Baron. And that is going to be really, really tough for Dignitas to actually approach. They don't actually have the Bard ultimate. LeBlanc is already down, so we'll see. Ruin is looking to set up for a potential flank here. Johnsun, Akaadian, Viper all threatening this Baron. They don't want to just give it over for free. We'll see if they make a play.
Ooh, there's Wiggily going in onto Akaadian. They're going to try and take out the enemy jungler. Haymaker's going to snap him in two as Stixxay finishes off the kill. And now Viper in trouble on the other side as Ruin's just going to zone out Johnsun and Afro, but Viper's still trying to make it happen. Stixxay the target. They need to kill this AD, but they can't get it just yet. Afro flashing in, misses that Q. Missed ult there from Stixxay. Viper still somehow alive, healing up a storm, but Ruin is finally able to finish off as Johnsun is going to try and turn the fight around. Afro with the slows finds one, make it two for Johnsun as he grabs his 7th kill of this game. And this health bars are still so low. Afro again, the mobility can still try and cut him off here.
They could potentially try to end. Johnsun decides not to go for the Nexus, though. He's actually going to come up to aphromoo and see if they can catch even more. The Dignitas bottom lane keeping them in this. It looked like CLG had that for sure. Froggen was already dead. They got the initial pick onto Akaadian, but they just couldn't get back onto Johnsun. And Viper got so much done on that flank. What a fight there for Dignitas to stay alive in this one.
Yeah, starting to feel like some of that healing reduction might be wanting to be looked for in other places.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 death stances, almost the 3rd now, and Johnsun has 3 forms of that healing reduction. Yes, now there is the full Thornmail on the Volley, plus a Bramble Vest on the Sett, so it's likely he will have that healing debuff applied to him. But there is no Morello or Executioners or anything like that to kind of guarantee that application. So it is target dependent. But now we have Dignitas at Soul Point themselves. Yep. CLG have been unable to actually, finish out that Soul after the early Dragon Snowball. They just haven't been able to get back to it and actually complete that. So next Dragon now, win condition potentially for both teams here.
And you can see that that one misstep completely changed this game. Afro with an early ulti onto Stixxay. He's the target. Good defense there from Wiggily. Just keeps the offensive line out of there as Akaadian was looking to dive in. Froggen though on the flank will get stunned by POB, but CLG haven't won the fight just yet. POB though is going to continue it here. Pops the ulti. Where's he going to go? Ruin looking to chase Froggen, but he can't get in there. Froggen still keeping his way out of trouble. And Pobelter can't find the follow-up despite the ultimate to chase.
Yeah, good disengage there from Dignitas after the initial peeling came through by CLG. Ruin might be caught out here. This is actually getting pretty annoying for him. A lot of damage gets put down. He's got to reset. The waves are going to be pushing in the favor of Dignitas. You can see down in that bottom lane, all those minions are at the turret. Pobelter has TP though, so he can go answer. Baron is alive, so Ruin needs to get back to base and actually heal up here too.
Also has TP. It looks like he is going to try and use it here as he's staying in the base.
Yeah.
Dig though, not going to pull the trigger. Again, they have control vision-wise. They don't need to rush this.
It looks like they have some wards over behind the Baron. I think you can see over kind of by that blue buff there is one. There's over one in that side brush too outside of the river. So that is where he's actually looking to go. If they can kind of corral them into a location where they could TP in there with home guards, it could be pretty devastating for Dignitas. And here it goes. They're going to that ward.
Yeah, Wiggily taking the damage from Froggen, but CLG are looking to chase in. Stixxay on the front side. There's Ruin with the flank on a Froggen. Gold cut down. Froggen is slain as the Stormbringer is brought by Ruin. Now CLG are onto this Baron.
We've seen this one before. Froggen picked off, but can Dignitas hold on again in the 4v5? Ruin again is set up on the side to try to come in for a potential flank here. Can this Dignitas bottom lane, who's so strong, make it happen once more?
Getting deja vu, CLG. I imagine they're looking to turn off this objective, but we'll see when they choose to go for it. They do go now. Wiggily in, tries to get the dunk, finds Johnsun, face break as well. Haymaker is buying all the time they need, but the QSS out as Ruin looks to chase down the carry, but can't quite finish it off. Afro, though, does fall as Ruin is getting knocked around, but not knocked down, as Stixxay still chasing with the Gravitum. I mean, CLG, they get the 2 kills, but they don't finish the objective.
Yeah, I mean, and Froggen is going to respawn here soon. They actually were able to get them off, so just the 1 kill. Viper, though, caught out. That is bad.
Pobelter as well. Gold card. That's an easy pick up there for CLG as Viper caught slipping by the gravity gun. Now CLG are back to Baron.
Yeah, CLG, they weren't respected, with that potential TF ultimate. So, gravity gun slows them down. The TF ult had come up there. Perhaps Dignitas actually lost track of that cooldown. They handled it so well after Froggen had been picked, pushing them off the Baron, only losing 1 to do it, then threatening that mid lane inhibitor. But you've always got to be aware of the potential of this TF ultimate, of getting picked off. And CLG able to make it happen with a couple global and semi-global plays. First the double TP to kill Froggen, then the ultimate comes back up and they're able to pick off Viper and finally grab themselves the Baron. It's going to be all about this next dragon fight. Both teams on soul point. The smite matters so much. The setup matters so much. For now, it is all Dignitas vision in that area, but CLG does have time to reset and look to try to prep around that dragon.
Yep, got the Baron buff to get the lanes pushed out as well. If they can get an inhib, which seems unlikely given the spawn timers, they'll have additional pressure, but we'll at least be able to get these waves pushed out fairly far. Certainly discourages Dig from wanting to fight them, but it does look like CLG already know the plan. Push mid, get vision around the dragon, and make sure we secure this Drake.
And the lead is no longer really there that much for Johnsun. Yes, he does have more kills, but Stixxay picked up a couple kills himself, including what I believe was a shutdown. So it is actually just the Executioners compared to the Dorans. Everything else is, pretty much dead even. Yes, Johnsun does have a bit more of an expensive build, but they are the same level. It's no longer that 2-level advantage. And as long as Aphelios has somewhat comparable itemization, the Lulu makes you so much stronger. So really, CLG kind of have well and truly reached that late game phase. Dignitas trying to get tricky. They're trying to just run down and actually threaten the inhibitor here. CLG, there's still 20 seconds until the dragon is spawned. They don't have to come. You. They can just run down mid lane if they want, but that would potentially open themselves up to just getting corralled and getting killed off.
Yeah, look at what Ruin is. He's all the way down to the
Ruin's
enemy red buff. Tempered Fate. Is Wiggily going to charge? He gets a good face breaker there, but Smoothie getting chunked a little bit. There's the ulti out from Aphelios. Infernum. It's going to rip through almost everybody. Digger on the wrong side of the map as one's already down. It's Akaadian as Pobelter chased in onto Johnsun. Perfectly marks their target with the TF ulti, making a triple kill there for Stixxay, is on track for the Penta as CLG in the late game have found the fight they needed. Afro and Froggen have to run away as Ruin is hunting them through the jungle.
Yeah, there you go. You see that Aphelios finally online, flying through that fight, AoEing them down with the Infernum, with the Lulu speed-ups and shield so hard to really get access to him. And now Pobelter, he's going to catch Afro.
Yeah, he did what I think he had to try and do, which is catch this wave, because CLG don't need the Soul Dragon. They're ending the game as they charge down mid. Froggen is the only line of defense right now. 10 seconds till Akaadian is up, but CLG, they still have Baron for 20 more seconds. That's enough with the wave they have behind them.
Yeah, they've got this. They're going to close this one out. There's no chance, I don't think, that Dignitas can actually defend it. Look at the turrets. They just go down too damn fast.
Pobelter with the gold card is going to threaten. They'll just move in and finish off the final few kills. But the Nexus is what matters most as CLG win a very thrilling game against Dig for their first 2-0 weekend in a year.
Incredible. And they've already matched their spring split total wins. They're 3-1. They went 3-15 in spring split. So yes, it was not the cleanest game. They did almost have that throw really, you know, kind of around that fight by the enemy's red buff. They had been so good up until that point. One major mistake made this game get a lot more interesting, a lot more close. But I do think, you know, CLG did a good job slowing things down, playing to their win conditions, and really playing around the fact that they had the superior team fighting comp, and really I think just the better draft overall. So they have got to be so damn happy. They get the 2-0. They're sitting 3-1 right up there at the top of the table. This is an incredible start for CLG.
Yep, slow and steady certainly is the name of the game for CLG, and they do manage to crush out that last win. On the other side, though, we are going to hear from Wiggily in the Verizon postgame interview before the analysts wrap out the day, so don't go too far. We'll be right back.
Verizon knows how to build unlimited right. You start with America's most awarded network, the one with unbeatable reliability 13 times in a row.
This network is one less thing I have to worry about.
Then you give people more plans to mix and match, so you only pay for what you need.
Verizon Unlimited plan is so reasonable, they could stay on for the rest of their lives.
You include the best in entertainment, and you offer it all starting at $35. Because everyone deserves the best. This is Unlimited built right, only on Verizon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I am joined by Wiggily from Chronologic Gaming after their victory over Dignitas in a real back-and-forth game. Wiggily, just to start off, kind of give me your take on what the comms were like in the game. And obviously, you never think we're done and they're going to take our Nexus, but how far behind did you think you guys were at one point?
I think that we were getting a little bit panicked because we were making just dumb mistake after dumb mistake. So I think when that happens, usually people are like, oh man, like we're really playing poorly, like what's going on, guys? But I think I actually just said, like, let's just all calm down. We really hard outscaled in this game. Let's just chill out, like just play team fights the way we know how to play them. So I think after we said that, everyone kind of just chilled out and we just played our game.
Awesome. Just a quick calming of the minds, and everybody's able to get back to the top gameplay. Scrims, have they been going well? Have they not? It seems like even if they're not, you guys are transitioning to the stage perfectly so far. 3-1 to start in a 2-0 weekend here.
Yeah, I mean, obviously our games haven't been as good as we'd like them to be. Like, obviously it feels good to win finally again. We have as many wins as we did last year, so that's obviously a good start. But I think that there's still a lot of stuff that we're not doing that we do well in scrims that we're just kind of flubbing on stage and just kind of panicking a bit too much. I think we're not used to winning yet, so I think that takes some time.
Awesome. And for you, it seems like there's been a lot of tanks in the past. Obviously, you can play aggressive, but this meta, it just seems like it's up in the air for everyone to pick and choose what they want to play. How have you been enjoying it so far?
Yeah, I think the meta is pretty interesting. I think that depending on the bans and depending on what your solo lanes want to play, that you can play pretty much anything in the jungle right now. So I think it's pretty cool because I think it's like the first time I've been playing since forever that I know that all these champions are in meta at once. So I think it's pretty fun, honestly, for me. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, it seems like CLG is really being able to benefit from that variety and the way the team is working coming into the summer split. Wiggily, thank you so much for your time. Congrats on the win, and congrats on the awesome start for Chronologic Gaming here in the summer split. Right now, we're going to throw it back to the State Farm analyst desk to break down the rest of the day.
Thank you, Riv, and welcome back to the State Farm Analyst Desk. You heard it from Wiggily himself there. CLG has already accumulated the same number of wins that they had in the entirety of Spring Split in the course of 2 weeks and 4 games. 3-1 now stands CLG. What the heck?
They're drafting better than anybody else that they're facing, I think. They're definitely playing the meta fairly well, which was a great turn of events considering that they basically just ran it down with the champion select of their first game where they got perfect game. So they're learning quick.
And even then, like, Volibear's, you know, Aatrox is supposed to be a little bit of a tough matchup for Volibear because the range Qs that you have from Aatrox can be a little bit difficult, but I don't think anyone is as comfortable playing against Volibear as Rune is playing Volibear. And so he's able to get out of that matchup that might be a little tricky and actually go even in it despite getting pushed in early.
Yeah, and I gotta say, TF for Pobelter is the perfect old man champion for him, where it's like you don't need the crazy mechanics.
Hold on.
You don't have to move around
The fact
much.
that you're calling Pobelter an old man.
Hey, this is
oh
relative
my.
to actually playing. I'm retired. I'm no longer playing. All right,
Okay,
I'm out of
okay.
the conversation.
Fair
But yeah,
enough.
it's not crazy mechanics or anything new. It's very simple. You have push on your Q and on your W, and then your ult just teleports you around the map. So I think this is a good one for him. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him on Zillion soon.
Now, one thing I do want to kind of figure out within this discussion of the success that CLG has found so far is how much confidence we can have in that success, meaning how much confidence can we have in that 3-1 record and really what it represents. Because I think Wiggily even pointed it out himself there. This wasn't a clean game, and a number of their wins have had some serious back and forth moments and have taken that moment of composure for them to really reevaluate how they're supposed to win it.
I have a lot of confidence in them, but against what I would consider to be the bottom of the barrel right now, which are teams like Dignitas, Golden Guardians, 100 Thieves, like those teams, I think they can easily win games, as we've seen so far, against teams that have shown to be really understanding how to play the game right now and have come out swinging in summer. Not so much. But I will say that's still a massive improvement in their own right because they weren't able to be that good, last split. That was a really cool clip of the Red Gun Severum being the right time to actually use it. I feel like we almost never see Red Gun Aphelios ults being optimal, but that was a good bait by Stixxay to get the entire team of Dignitas jumping in on him.
Yeah, and if we try to identify a few of the points that are working for CLG, I'm going to keep focusing around that bot lane. You already called out Pobelter in the mid lane, probably. But Smoothie, I think to a degree, has flown under the radar here in these initial weeks as a silent, solid performer for CLG.
Oh yeah, I think the range support meta is pretty decent for him. I think laning phase, he still has some issues to sort out, but I think the style of which where he can actually sit back and buff up Stixxay, because Stixxay was always kind of spoken as this really strong player who can play these like kind of hyperscaling champions. So to be able to see him kind of be, what's the word, enabled in that way is nice to see.
Right, so an understanding of that meta, one of the quicker teams to adapt to it in Champion Select. You called out Crumbs, but they still are plagued by some of those moments of inconsistency. And I want to take a look at one in particular, around the red buff, the moment where it almost all goes bad for CLG.
Yeah, and this is already an invade that's been spotted out. So Dignitas knows that they can collapse. They very immediately go in. And what CLG should do right here is go onto Viper. You suplexed him in. There's no need to go on anything else. And Pobelter just face checks it to so many members. Viper would have been a free kill. You take him out of the game, and then you can continue to move around the map. Consider that LeBlanc isn't even here. And it was off of this play that Dignitas had a big lead and could have actually won the game. There were multiple instances where Dig could have ended this, but they didn't see it. They just went for a third dragon, and well, they lost as a result.
Multiple moments where Dig could have won it. There was one moment where CLG did win it. Let's take a look at that game-winning fight now.
I think they did a good job of finding LeBlanc on the flanks. They were able to do that a number of times to get kills, to get them back into this game. It allowed them to get some of their Barons, and then they were able to, turn and actually catch people out. Here you have the kind of flip map setup where they were able to wrap around. And a really, really nice setup by Wiggily, who had a good game after someone who had been kind of harped on a lot by the community of being a younger player who had not had the success after an okay summer last split, coming totally back down to earth in spring, and now looking like maybe summer's just his split. Find something to work on in spring, but summer he looks pretty good.
Yeah, who knew he was a player by the seasons? I think the next part of this discussion is to really contextualize the win and what it means for the team and the organization. Again, matching already the number of wins you picked up in the spring, off of an off-season where you were criticized time after time for not making movements in your roster, and still to be able to come into the summer split and put up a showing like this after taking that initial perfect game loss. I mean, just the mental gymnastics and fortitude that these guys must have to have, said, hey, we're going to stick to our guns and we're going to prove you eventually wrong, in your thinking that what we've done isn't going to work.
I think it was from an interview that Stixxay did where they just said, listen, we understood, we did some reflection that we've been pros for a long time. We know what we're capable of. We don't need to get too much into our own head. So they figured it out. And I think it's similar to what Team Liquid had last split, where you just had such a horrendous split for your own standards that you can't even use that as a comparison for how good you should perform in the next one. So they're just scratch that all together, start again, and that's why you're going towards these very simple to execute compositions, because starting again with those simple baselines is a lot more fulfilling and easy to pull off than going with the Nidalee Jace Ezreal poke comp.
Well, with our fourth game of the day behind us, let's go ahead and turn our attention to the standings, where we can see that only 2 teams remain undefeated in the LCS. Our reigning champions in Cloud9 and this rejuvenated Team Liquid squad, while the rest of the teams are now beginning to scrap it out. But I think already I'm excited by this summer split because of the contentiousness within the standings and how little our preconceived notions are actually matching up to the reality so far.
Yeah, I mean, I'm already thinking CLG 6th place. That's where I think they'd actually be perfect. Yeah, I mean, CLG is obviously one of the surprises. I think Team Liquid, everyone was expecting to do better, but contending for number 1 is definitely a little surprising. They haven't had the hardest strength of schedule, but they have beat a couple of teams that you would consider, the mid-tier, quote-unquote, like Golden Guardians and 100 Thieves, and they've clearly been better than them. So the question is, what is the ceiling of this team now when they go up against an EG, a FlyQuest, and C9?
Right, and likewise, there's been a couple teams that may be underperforming due to expectation, based on the way that 100 Thieves, had seemed to level up near that latter half of the spring split. The 0-3 start has been somewhat disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, I think towards the end of the split, even in playoffs, we were thinking like, all right, this team is going to be able to pick up where they left off. But in summer, it seems like they regressed back to the beginning of what their spring was looking like. So I'm definitely expecting them to catch up. And I think the second team that I was surprised to be so messy is like TSM. Like, they've played together before. There shouldn't be so many communication issues and fighting issues and even draft issues with a team that's so experienced.
Yeah, two of the biggest individual stars in the history of the LCS, Bjergsen and Doublelift, on the same team, and just a middling start. Nothing necessarily to scoff at, but nothing to write home about. I just received a note that TL versus Cloud9, those two undefeated teams, will be a matchup for next week's Friday Night League. So we only have to wait about 6 days to get that matchup and for one of those two teams to eventually take a loss. We do return tomorrow, though, for more action before Friday Night League with more LCS games to satiate your appetite. Things kick off with Evil Geniuses facing off against Team Liquid, then FlyQuest versus Dignitas, with 2 more matches before the Bud Light League Lounge, where I'll be joined by Kobe, Crumbs, and LeTigris, where we'll reveal some deep, dark secrets about one another and toast some heroes from the week. I know that I already threw my secrets in there. I think Crumbs has done the same, and I'm excited to learn a few things about you, my friend.
Oh, I think you already know these, but they're so complicated that you might think they're yours.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? There's going to be a whole mind game element of trying to come up with clues that will push people to others. It should be a good time. It was a good time last weekend, and I'm sure it will be this time around. With that, that's going to do it for Saturday's LCS Day. So from all of us here at the LCS, myself, the casters, the entire remote broadcast crew, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you later for more LCS. Good night.
Good night.